Radio Telefíséireann. This is RTE1, where we now join Miriam O'Callaghan and Brian Dobson for a news special about today's digital switchover.
And a very good morning to you and welcome to our special programme this morning, where in a few minutes we'll be switching off the old analogue television signal and moving to the new digital television service in line with broadcasters across Europe. We'll be joining Miriam O'Callaghan shortly in RT's National Transmission Monitoring Centre, where the old system will at 10 o'clock sharp be switched off and the new digital service will take over. If you're still unsure of how all this will affect you and your television viewing, you can give the helpline a call. It's still operating and will continue to operate for some time to come. There's the number on your screen, 1890 222 012, 1890 222 012, or you can check out the website at www.sairview.ie. Later we'll go over to Mary Kennedy in Studio 1 and hear from the Minister for Communications Pat Rabbitte and RTE's Chairman Tom Savage. I'm joined here in studio by Mary Curtis, who's Director of the Switchover Project, and by Brian Geraghty, who's RTE's Digital Reception Manager. We'll speak to them in just a moment. In Northern Ireland, first of all, the digital switchover has already taken place. It was last night. Olympic pentathlon hero Dame Mary Peters turned off what was the last remaining analogue television service in the UK at midnight. More than 200,000 households across Northern Ireland will be able to watch Freeview television for the first time today. Well, before we go over to Miriam at 10 o'clock for the switchover, let's have a quick word with our guests here in the studio. As I say, we're joined by Mary Curtis and Brian Geraghty. Thanks indeed for joining us this morning. It's the end of a long road, I know, for both of you. Brian, what actually will happen now in a couple of minutes' time?
In a few minutes' time, Brian, the analogue services right throughout Ireland will switch off. So anybody who receives their TV through an aerial, if they haven't already made the switch to digital, they'll lose their TV in a few minutes' time. Right.
The digital service has actually been operating, hasn't it? So people who already were geared up for it, that's how they're getting their TV.
Yes, Sairview is on the air for 18 months now, and the majority of households affected have already made the switch, but there are still a number of viewers who will need to do something today, or, well, they'll be without TV in the next few minutes.
Mary, can we estimate how many people still haven't made this switch over, and I mean, whose televisions will go dark at 10 o'clock?
It's very hard to estimate. Our last figures are the Nielsen figures from August, which at the time said 200,000 households needed to switch. We know from retail, because we're in constant contact with the retailers and the manufacturers, that business is very, very busy. So we also know that people have been buying the boxes but may not have plugged them in or installed them yet. So we will have figures next week, but along with other jurisdictions in other countries, we know that today will be very busy, as will the next couple of days, and we will have figures next week.
If you get your television through satellite or through a cable provider, there's nothing for you to do. It's done. No. It's done for you. It's only if you have the aerial on the roof. Or
if you receive your television through an aerial, then Sairview is for you.
Right. And if you haven't taken action, you can still contact our helpline, and it's not too late. I mean, you're not.
No, not at all. And we have the helpline, we have the website, we have a number of tutorials on the website. We have lots and lots and lots of information. So for anybody who's concerned, confused, or wants information, the resources and the assistance is there.
All right. Well, let's hand over now to Miriam in the transmission centre with about a minute and a half to go, I think, Miriam.
Yeah, thanks a million, Brian. I am in this room in RT. I've never been here before. This is where I'll be switching it off. This is the mouse on which I'm going to switch off the analogue signal. I'm joined here by Mick Keogh, who's the man with responsibility for monitoring all the transmitters on every mountain in Ireland. Mick, tell me about these screens behind us.
Well, basically the screens on the left hand side there are the 4 analogue services. These are the ones you're going to be switching off in 1 minute and 2 seconds. And then here on the right hand side are the new digital services. There's the terrestrial Sairview service, and then there's also the SairSat service, the satellite solution. And between both those services now, there's a free-to-air solution available at the rooftop of every home in the country for the first time. So,
and it's not an exaggeration, Mick, to say you do literally monitor in here every transmitter on every mountain in this beautiful country of ours. How do you do that?
Yeah, well, you can see some of the computers here in front of us, and they're obviously connected to the mountain tops via microwave radio links and via fibre optic cables and stuff like that. And then it's all fed into various software programs, and then the engineers sit here and monitor it, and they can switch sites on, off, services up, down, and power things up and down and keep a good eye on it from here, make sure nothing is going wrong.
And we've got 20 seconds to go now, Mick. Is it a big day for all of you guys in here?
It's a big day. We've been looking at this for a number of years, so it's great that it's happened, and we're now hit the
10 seconds. 9,
7,
6,
5.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, switch.
And there we have it.
Four, 3, 2, 1, switch.
And there we have it.
The analog is over.
Analog is over.
A new digital world.
New digital world after some 50 years.
Wow. Well done to all of you. I hear them applauding outside in there. So well done to everyone involved. And is it an emotional day?
We're engineers, so we don't do much promotion, but we're just delighted to have the new latest and greatest available for people, because it's a much better service, you know, better quality picture, better quality audio, digital teletext, radio service on the TV, and obviously lots of room for more channels to come along. So it'll be a much improved service for the Irish viewer. Yeah, well, for all of you watching, it's an historic day, more than 50 years of analogue, and now we're into a new, brilliant digital world. Right back to you, Brian.
Thank you indeed to Mick and to Miriam. If you're still watching us, obviously you've made the switch, but perhaps you know somebody who's having some difficulty with this. So just a reminder of the helpline and the website that you may be able to assist somebody whose television has gone dark this morning. There's the helpline number, 1890 222 012, or the website www.serveyou.ie. Well, now let's go over to Studio 1 here at RT in Montrose, where Mary Kennedy is standing by with some guests this morning. Mary.
Thank you, Brian. Well, tá fáilteoibh ag baile chuig Studio Hain, áit bhfuil slua balathe le haig na hócáide móra seo, muid chóirseach ré nua I gúrsaí telefíse in Éireann. So now we have crossed the threshold from analogue to digital, and you at home are very welcome to this gathering in Studio 1 of people who've played a part in this process. And I have to say, watching Miriam doing the countdown brought me back echoes of the countdown of that very first moment of Telefís Éireann all those years ago on New Year's Eve in 1961. And my goodness, haven't we come a long way since then? I remember when I was young in the very early days being told to get up off that chair and go over and tweak those rabbit's ears left, right, centre, up, down, in and out to get some class of a picture on the screen. Well, I can tell you those days have changed, and we have fabulous service now and more fabulous service even to come. This is a very auspicious moment, and to share his thoughts with us on this very important day as we move from analogue to digital, will you welcome please the Minister for Communications, Curramish Fáilte Riv and Ara Comersáide, Pat Rabbit TD.
Thank you very much, Mary, for that introduction, and you can tweak my ears anytime. 3 minutes ago, the analogue network that has served this country well for over 50 years was switched off for good. National analogue TV is no more in Ireland. Its replacement, Serveyou, heralds the dawn of the digital broadcasting era for this country. This is an historic event, a new, exciting advance for broadcasting in Ireland. Switching to digital is happening across Europe, and Ireland must compete. There are many gains for the Irish economy, for citizens, for TV viewers, consumers and broadcasters. Public service broadcasting remains vital to the social, political and cultural life of the nation. And what we're doing here today ensures people will continue to have access to free-to-air television, providing a full range of services with a strong national voice on a publicly owned infrastructure. This infrastructure is future-proofed and sufficiently flexible so as to adapt as technology evolves. For TV viewers, digital television provides sharper pictures and better sound. It also provides better coverage of the Irish TV channels. 98% of the population will now get all 4 Irish TV stations without subscription for the first time. It also provides more choice to the viewer. National free-to-air broadcasting in Ireland has increased from 4 channels to 8 and also provides an enhanced Airtel service. What is happening today is part of a beneficial change that is occurring on a global scale. The switch to digital also represents a more efficient use of a valuable public resource, our telecommunications spectrum. Public spectrum is a scarce resource. With analog switch-off, important spectrum becomes available for other services. This is referred to as the digital dividend and presents real opportunities for new broadcasting and telecommunications services to our people. In particular, the freed up spectrum can be used for the development of high-speed mobile broadband services, important for rural as well as urban areas. This is also an historic day in terms of broadcasting on the island of Ireland. The analogue service in Northern Ireland was also switched off today. TG Car, RTE and Radio na Gaeltachta are now available directly in Northern Ireland, which will have 94% coverage of these Irish channels. This hugely beneficial development has its origins in the Good Friday and St. Andrews agreements. In marking this historic and exciting event, I must acknowledge the work of Sairview, RTE and RTE networks in promoting, funding and building this new national television network. RTE has made a significant financial investment in providing a new world-class digital television network. It is an achievement of which to be proud. Great care has been taken over the past 18 months to deliver switchover as successfully as possible. I want to thank all concerned who have worked on the project. In particular, I want to thank the many volunteers up and down the country who selflessly gave of their time in the community outreach program. They have helped tens of thousands of people who otherwise may have found it difficult to upgrade to digital TV. Undoubtedly, there are some people that have not yet made the switch, and we will continue to provide advice to those who need it. The assistance of our National Telephone Helpline and our outreach program will still be available over the coming weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, there have been many milestones in broadcasting in this country, from televising the visit of Princess Grace and Prince Rainier of Monaco in 1962, to 1971, which saw our first colour and home-produced television production, to the broadcasting of the immensely successful state visits last year. The switch to digital television is just another milestone in the evolution and development of broadcasting in Ireland. The switch to digital also presents this country with exciting new possibilities in terms of telecommunications. It is a change to be embraced and welcomed. Gormagif.
Thank you very much, Minister Rabbitte, spelt with 2 T's and an E, just so there's no confusion about what I was up to as a child when I started to get above that chair. Now, we're honoured also to have with us and to share his thoughts on this auspicious occasion, a man who has worked for many, many years in the communications industry, the chairman of the RTE board, Tom Savage. Kermis Fáilte.
Thank you very much, Mary, and thank you very much, Minister. We're very honoured that Minister Pat Rabbitte could join us here today to mark the end of an era as analogue television is switched off in Ireland. Television in Ireland has come a long way. I remember, and I think I'm older than both the 2 people here with me on this panel, I remember watching the first broadcast on Telefís Éireann, with everyone gathered round the small flickering screen in the corner to marvel at this new wonder of technology. In those black and white days, there might be one TV on a street or even in a parish, and we only had one channel. 50 years later, we're talking about HD and 3D and the 2-screen experience, whatever that is. But we have hundreds of channels and mobile TV. Television has changed greatly. Our choices have widened, but it's a testament to the skills of those first engineers that the analogue network has served us so well and for so long. The switch to digital opens, as the Minister has said, new possibilities and horizons for the Irish viewer. Digital television gives us better quality pictures and interactivity. With DTT, RTE can serve its audience better with more channels and services. For this first time in the history of Irish television, 100% of the Irish population can access free-to-air Irish digital television through Searview or Searsat. True, we could get digital TV from pay providers, but it's important that all Irish people have access to what digital technology has to offer. In this, one of the most difficult periods in its financial history, RTE has funded the building of a major piece of national infrastructure at a cost of €70 million. Thanks to the vision, skill, planning and sheer hard work of the team at RTNL, Ireland has a new digital television network. The project has been completed on time and on budget and to the highest standard. And for this, I'd like to thank that unemotional engineer you saw earlier with Miriam, Mick Keogh, and all his staff at RTENL. Though some people have a saying which runs, "Build it and people will come," we here decided not to take that approach. 2 years ago, there were thousands of Irish householders reliant on the analogue system. These people needed information to understand what they needed to do and why this change was coming. The Searview Public Information Campaign has been creative, comprehensive and ubiquitous, so much so that people have kept asking me, when will that damn campaign be over? Now, given the task of educating and informing the public about analogue switch-off and Searview, the key part of that task fell to Mary Curtis. She was the guiding genius, and Mary and her team have done stellar work to ensure that the people of Ireland knew what they had to do to continue enjoying free-to-air Irish television. This multifaceted and highly effective campaign has been executed actually in a very short time frame. And although the Searview team ran the information campaign, success couldn't have been achieved without the cooperation and support of policymakers, the TV industry, the trade and civil groups. On this occasion, I would like to thank the Department of Communications, Minister here today, Comreg and the BAI, as well as our broadcast partners TV3 and TG Cahir. I would also like to pay tribute to the manufacturers, the distributors, the retailers and the installers who worked closely with Searview. They have produced equipment, complied with standards and made sure that there was adequate stock on the shelves to meet the needs of Irish consumers. I'd also like to thank all the organisations in the voluntary sector, the churches, the politicians who used their networks to support the Searview information campaign. Finally, I'd like to say a special word of thanks to Searview's outreach partners, Muintir na Tíre and Macra na Firma, and Energy Action. These have worked tirelessly to ensure that Searview's message was heard in towns, villages and communities all over the country. The road to digital television in Ireland has been a long one, but a day like today demonstrates what can be achieved when government, industry and society work together. It's my hope that together we have laid a strong foundation for the future of Irish television in the digital age. Thank you very much.
Well, there we leave the chairman of the RTE board, Minister and the Minister for Communications, Mary Kennedy, with their reflections on this. It is indeed a historic day that we close down a transmission service which has served Irish television viewers for 50 years and embark on this new digital era. Brian Geraghty and Mary Curtis are still with us. Brian, just a word about the operation involved here, because as people know, there's a transmission network across the country, aerials and transmission sites and so on. Were you able to use those for the new digital service, or did you have to build entirely new structures?
Many of the existing analogue sites have been reused for the digital service, Brian. So all the main transmitter sites that people will be familiar with, Mount Leinster, Capure, Mullaghinish, Mahara, they're all now in use for Sairview, albeit a lot of them required an investment in infrastructure upgrade. And also, as was mentioned earlier, the SAIR-SAT solution is there, the infill solution for those viewers who can't get Sairview, and that's a satellite-based system, and this is the first time that the RTE transmission network has used satellite to cover homes.
Yeah, let's just also say to people that, to remind them of that helpline, that call helpline number, which is still operational. And as I say, not for those of you who are watching us at the moment, because you're sorted, but perhaps you have neighbours or family members or other acquaintances maybe who are going to have some difficulty now after this switch over, and that's the helpline number there, and that's the website that you can check out how to help them to make the switch over. Well, as we go from digital to analogue transmitters, which has served us so well for the past 50 years, let's look back on the building of that national television network, which Brian was just talking about, and where some of those first masts were erected.
Building the transmitters for the new Telefís Éireann network was a major undertaking. The transmitters had to be sited in areas that gave the best possible picture to the greatest number of people.
At Gorey in Wexford, the masts are fabricated by Span Steel Engineering, an Irish registered company whose parent body is in Norway.
The first transmitter mast at Capure in County Wicklow was made completely in Norway. It was erected in 1961.
In 1961, it was only Capure was on the air at the start. So it was only available in part of the Dublin area and outside close to Dublin. And then over the following couple of years, the other transmitters came on the air, and it was black and white, of course.
We had just the one television service, which at that particular time, it was unique to have that service. And everybody valued the service, which ran from 5:30 in the evening to about 11:30 at night. So it was about 6 hours of broadcasting at the beginning.
The mast at Mullaghinish on the Cork-Kerry border was 500 feet high. But before the mast could be erected, a road had to be built along the side of the mountain. The building of foundations for the transmitters on the top of mountains in difficult weather conditions was a time-consuming process. The installation of the equipment at the transmitter sites was carried out by Telefís Éireann engineers and the manufacturers of the new equipment. The County Sligo transmitter was built on the top of Truskmore and at 2,100 feet above sea level, the highest peak in the Benbulben range. But the highest transmitter of all was built on the top of Mount Leinster in the Blackstairs Mountains on the Carlow-Wexford border.
It was just a plain mountain, sheep grazing on it. There was a small goat track at the end, up to some turf banks, and from that it was just a mountain.
Erecting transmitters on the tops of mountains was a very difficult job. So why choose these sites?
The range increases the higher you get the transmitter, and of course the cheapest way to get height is to put your transmitters on mountain tops.
Since those early days, the number of transmitters increased throughout the country. But as Ireland goes digital, the number of transmitters has reduced.
Analog transmission network consists of 176 sites, but the digital transmission network consists of only 64 sites. That's because we have increased the power of a lot of our sites. We've increased the mast heights. For example, our mast in Mullaghinish is 220 metres high, and it's sending a wonderful strong signal all over Munster.
Helen McInerney, RTE News, Waterford.
So there you go, an insight into what's been involved in this switchover in the context of RTE's 50 years of television transmission. Mary Curtis and Brian Geraghty are still with us. Mary, the point was referred to there, I think by Pat Rabbit, that one of the consequences of this switchover is that bandwidth, which was taken up by the old analog service, becomes available to mobile phone companies, others who might have an interest in that kind of asset, and that's something that can be sold off and can generate revenue. Yeah,
I mean, it's a very good story from a national economic perspective. I mean, we are one of the last countries to actually switch to digital within Europe. It's mandated by Europe. So the freeing up of this radio spectrum means that it can then be auctioned to the various different, as Minister Rabbit said, broadband companies or telcos, etc. So there was a reason and a rationale behind this switch, and it is in these times a good economic story.
And in terms of the potential, Brian, of the new digital service, I mean, there are additional channels on it now that people perhaps won't have seen before if they're only making the switch today, and there's potential for this platform, if you like, to carry further channels.
Absolutely. At the moment we have 8 TV services, 10 radio services, the electronic programme guide, digital Airtel on Sairview, but the network has been engineered to allow for about the same amount of channels again. So we have capacity there for several more TV channels and radio services.
So what happens then? How is that decided? What, if anything, would go onto those channels?
The BAI will have to license more channels to come onto the platform, but the infrastructure is there in place. So once a decision is made on new channels, it'll be a very straightforward process to introduce those to the multiplexes that are there at the moment, and then viewers will just have to do a simple retune of their boxes at some point in the future, and they'll get those new channels.
Yeah, so I mean, this really is, Mary, new technology. It's transformative technology, isn't it, in terms of its potential?
I mean, the story today obviously is about the switch off, but Sairview will continue to grow as a platform, as a free-to-air platform, and you know, the more channels and the more services that it has free-to-air, the more attractive it is as a platform.
All right, well, thank you both indeed for being with us, Brian Geraghty and Mary Curtis, and congratulations on this day, and the appreciation, I think, of everyone here and across the country, television viewers across the country, for all the work that's gone in by you and your teams. Thanks very much indeed to Brian and Mary for being with us. That's it from this special programme on the switchover. My thanks, as I say, to Mary and to Brian for being with us. We'll be back after this commercial break with Wednesday's Leaders' Questions, which I suppose we might say is RTE's first television programme of the digital era. Don't go away.